Saturday the 16th of December, we now have a 4-day moon, which you can see over the top of the garage. I tried imaging it a little bit yesterday when it was a 3-day moon, but the atmospheric disturbances were so bad that it really was not revealing anything in the way of detail. Of course, here's spent in the observatory. I'm going to set up, this will be my last night out for quite a while. I'm going to probably change my observing plan in the future due to the fact that days will start getting longer and longer, and the sidereal clock will start accelerating, with the result being making it very difficult between moon cycles such as this now and weather changes for me to be able to persistently stay with the NGC catalog. So what I may do is I may be coming up with a program where I focus primarily on very largish, brightish studies and try to give them an opportunity to get a good view through the scope. So basically I'll go through the NGC catalog and looking particularly for studies of very particular interest. I'm going to mount the camera right here, looking at the screen on the Skywatcher 150 ED, and then see if I can get a view of the moon, which has got some solid contrast and features on it, sharp, which is, as I mentioned earlier, 4-day moon. Hey, let's get a start on things by having a look at NGC 891, that fabulous edge-on galaxy on the border of Perseus and Andromeda. It's actually found within the boundaries of Andromeda. The view is very nice despite high, thin clouds and water vapor and a 4-day moon. That is a very fine look. Unfortunately, due to a variety of events, given the fact that this sidereal clock is going to start advancing very quickly after the winter solstice, possible travel, and the moon, I may not be able to keep up with the NGC series when the next lunar cycle is past, which typically starts for me about 3 days after the next full moon. However, if I can, I will. Otherwise, I may adopt a policy of just finding some of the nicer galaxies, clusters, planetary nebula that give a very nice view similar to this one, which will seriously restrict the number of videos. But what I may do is, because I'll have more time for each, I may push the envelope on settings so that we get maximum both sensitivity and exposure times on deep sky studies. Because right now, if I were to max out the settings, go to 256 flood and 44.8, I could probably, in terms of sensitivity, I could probably get in almost another magnitude of reach, going from, let's say, overall about 17 magnitude, maybe 17.5 to 18.5, which would give an opportunity to really see the kind of detail that we're seeing right here in NGC 891 among brighter studies. Let's say assume galaxies that are brighter than magnitude 12.5, for instance. But I would be doing a lot more hopping around and taking more time on each and every study, as I am right here. Very nice view. Well, let's start with this one. NGC 250 is a galaxy in Pisces. It's at +8 degrees in declination, magnitude 13.6, 1.1 by 0.6 arc minute, oblately presented spiral with lowercase a, some 236 million light years distant. Now, looking at the screen and allowing for conditions, this would probably not be the kind of study I would be investigating once I have to set aside the NGC catalog series for maybe 6 months to a year until the next cycle came around. But we are at least continuing that series right now, and as I can tell, there's that 13.6 magnitude NGC 250. I want to recount a few things as we go along from the previous night's notes that I gave on the NGC series 200 to 249. For instance, let's start with the idea of average surface brightness. This is a magnitude 13.6 galaxy. It's 1.1 by 0.6 arc minutes. It probably has an average surface brightness. Given those numbers, if it were 1 by 1, it would have an average surface brightness of 13.6. So it's probably somewhere around magnitude 13 in terms of average surface brightness. But the fact is, all we are seeing pretty much is the core of NGC 250. Here we have NGC 251, it's a galaxy in Pisces, and it's an illustrative galaxy from the point of view of average surface brightness. This galaxy is slightly brighter, magnitude 13.2, but much larger at 2.4 by 1.9 arc minutes in size. The way you calculate average surface brightness is you'd multiply the 2.4 by the 1.9, probably get something along the line of 5, and then you take the log 2.5 of that and add it to the brightness of the galaxy overall. So in this case, it would probably be somewhere around magnitude 14. The core of this galaxy is roughly, since it's a spiral of class C, 206 million light years distant, is about 0.8 magnitudes fainter than the galaxy overall, since roughly speaking, half the light in a galaxy resides in its core region. And so that would mean the core region of this galaxy is magnitude 14. Here we have a brighter galaxy, NGC 252, in Andromeda. It's plus 27 degrees, so it's in the sky's middle third. That's about the best you get, especially if you do not block the aperture of the scope by the roof try of the observatory, which is not the case here. It's a magnitude 12.4 galaxy. It's 1.4 by 1 spiral. It's a galaxy with a ring. Typically the ring's brightness is about 4 to 4.5 magnitudes fainter than the galaxy overall, so that would put it around magnitude 17. So what I'd be looking for here in this view is any sense that there's an annularity, a faint nebulosity around this galaxy, and on a good night with proper settings and everything operating well, we would expect to be able to vaguely make out the annularity around NGC 252 in Andromeda. This is a very interesting galaxy, and I would recommend it for any viewers. Unfortunately, we're also very deep south. This is NGC 253, a galaxy in Sculptor. It's at minus 25 degrees. And in fact, this galaxy is quite visible on the screen. It's magnitude 7.2. There are probably only 10 to 15 galaxies in the sky that are as bright as magnitude 7.2. It's 26.4 by 6 arc minutes. So it's almost, it's a supra-edge-on galaxy. You can see the core, you can see the extensions going off, you can see faint brightness going way off in the distances from, let's say, the 5 to the 5 to 11 o'clock position. This is a fabulous galaxy, and if we're only further up in the sky towards the north, we would be getting a wonderful view. But frankly, I am very impressed with NGC 253 in Sculptor, minus 25 degrees in declination. Awesome. We've just headed further south in Sculptor to NGC 254. It's an 11.7 magnitude galaxy, which would ordinarily be quite impressive, except after NGC 253. 254 is 2.6 by 1.7 arc minutes. spiral with a bar, lenticular with a lowercase a, and a ring. Now, unfortunately, due to its minus 31.5 degrees declination, we're not going to get much of a sense of that. But the galaxy is pretty present on the screen right there, with some extensions going off at an angle. Anyway, not a bad look for minus 31.5 degrees declination. NGC 255 is another galaxy. This one's in Cetus, but it's at minus 11.5 degrees. Magnitude 11.9, 3.1 by 2.7 arc minutes. It would be nice if we had a darker sky down to the south. So spiral with a bar in lowercase bc, a mere 72 million light years distant. If you multiply 72 by 3, you get about 220, and our own galaxy at about 200, let's call it 300 million light years distance is 100,000 light years in diameter. So this one's probably somewhere around 75 to 80,000 light years in diameter and is quite present on the screen. NGC 257 is a galaxy in Pisces, further north, plus 8 and change degrees above the celestial equator. Its magnitude 12.6, 1.9 by 1.3 arc minutes. Spiral with a lowercase c, 237 million light years distant. If you multiply that 237 by 1.9, you end up with something along the lines of 420. It's a little bit smaller than Messier 31, probably about 130,000 light years in diameter. Not a bad look. NGC 258 is much further north, a galaxy in Andromeda. It's at plus 27.5 degrees in declination. However, it's faintish and small. Magnitude 15, 0.45 by 0.4 arc minutes. Spiral with a lowercase b. I believe the galaxy is quite visible right there at the very middle of the screen. And you'll probably notice throughout the evening things will drift a little towards the bottom of the screen as we go north and a little towards the top as we head south. So there's our view of NGC 258. NGC 259 is a galaxy in Cetus, the whale, magnitude 13.3, 2.9 by 0.6 arc minutes. It's a supra-edge-on galaxy. It's minus 2, almost 3 degrees, and we haven't quite reached the first hour. We're at 48 minutes of right ascension at this point here, but you can see the edgy-on presentation of this 13.3 magnitude galaxy. Heading north once again to NGC 260, a galaxy in Andromeda, the Princess. Its magnitude 13.5, 0.8 by 0.8 arc minutes. Spiral with a lowercase c and a lowercase p, which means peculiarities. 235 million light years distant. We're at plus 27, almost 28 degrees in declination. And I do believe there are several galaxies in the field, some of which we may visit as part of this tonight's NGC 250-299 series. NGC 262 is another galaxy in Andromeda. It's magnitude 13.1, face on 1.4 by 1.4 arc minutes. It's a spiral, however, 204 million light years distant. We're at almost plus 32 degrees, and I do not believe the aperture of the scope is being obstructed in any way. NGC 263 is a galaxy further south in Cetus at minus 13 degrees. Magnitude is 14. It's oblately presented 0.7 by 0.3 arc minutes. Should look like a fuzzy spot. Spiral with a lowercase bc and 390 million light years distance, so it's smaller than our Milky Way. And there is our view, and I'm noticing there's some luminosity in the high thin clouds to the south, and you're seeing that as a spread of whitish light all over the screen, making resolution of NGC 263 to the eye a little difficult. A little bit of a skip over a deep south study, which was more than 35 degrees south, but accessible from this north, 45 degrees north, is NGC 266, a galaxy in Pisces. Brightish, magnitude 11.6, face on 2.9 by 2.9 arc minutes. If you multiply those together, you get 9. If you take the log of 2.5, you probably get something around 3. and you add that to 11.6, so its average surface brightness is probably somewhere around 14.5. The galaxy is quite visible on the screen, however, and we are at 32 and change degrees northern declination. NGC 268 is a galaxy in Cetus. It's right at the tip of my finger. Magnitude 13.1, 1.6 by 1.1 arc minute, spiral with a bar, lowercase bc, 245 million light years distant. Puts this one probably at about 120,000 light years in diameter, larger than the Milky Way. We're at -5 and change degrees. Not a bad look, however. NGC 270 right there is a galaxy in Cetus, -8.5 degrees. Its magnitude is 12.9, making it quite apparent. 1.8 by 1.6 arc minutes. Spiral with a lowercase a, 170 million light years distant. Puts it probably about, once again, about 110, 120,000 light years in diameter. We are at -8 and over a half degrees, and we're now entering into right ascension 50 minutes and 32 seconds with NGC 270. NGC 271 is another galaxy in Cetus, but this one's almost 2 degrees below the celestial equator, so not bad. Its magnitude 12, 2.2 by 1.7 arc minutes, spiral with a bar and lowercase ab, 184 million light years distant. Yeah, it puts it about 125,000 light years in diameter. You can see it right there next to that bright star. And so not a bad look near the celestial equator. NGC 272 is a rather sparse open cluster in Andromeda. Its magnitude 8.5. Sparse it is. 8 stars. Magnitude 9 is the brightest star. It's a class IV1, which means, let's see, IV I think had to do with the brightness of the stars, and 1 is the distribution. Or I could have that in reverse. It's been a while since I've actually imaged an open cluster. But one of the numbers beginning from 1 to IV is the brightness, distribution of the stars, and the other is how condensed they are, or vice versa. We're at +30, almost 36 degrees. We may be getting a slight amount of blockage of the aperture. But a different kind of study, open cluster, NGC 272. South again, also for galaxies into Cetus, NGC 273, magnitude 12.9, 2.1 by 0.6 arc minutes. Nice aspect ratio, if we can see it. We're at almost 7 degrees, and declination. 273 is a lenticular spiral, 212 million light years distant. Given its size, it's rivaling, but probably about 140,000 light years in diameter. Back on, you can see a slow moving, probably a satellite, moving across the screen right there. Occasionally I do end up catching artificials such as that. I have yet to see, I have seen those that are actually spewing propellant, and I think those may be geo-repositionable satellites. This one seems to be trailing something, so it is under some form of thrust or propulsion. And it's moving fairly slowly across the screen. The screen, by the way, is about 15 arc minutes in size. And there, we see it about to exit, just as I do also. A click of the stepper motors in NGC 273 has a neighbor, NGC 274, galaxy in Cetus. Brightish, magnitude 11.8, smallish, 1.9 by 1.4 arc minutes. It is an elliptical class 1, 69 million light years distant. Given its size, I'd say it's probably 40 to 50,000 light years. I mean, its distance is probably 40,000 light years in diameter. We're at -7 degrees. Another mirror click, and we are at NGC 275, a galaxy in Cetus. Also, quite bright, magnitude 12.5, 1.5 by 1.2 arc minutes. Spiral with a lowercase b and a p, so for some peculiarities, 74 million light years distant, so not a very biggie, probably somewhere around 30 to 40,000 light years in diameter. Dropping way south, but still in Cetus, is NGC 276 Galaxy. It's magnitude 14.9, 1 by 0.4 arc minutes, so a sub-oblate. Spiral with a upper bar and a lowercase b. This one's distant, 619 million light years. That puts it about maybe 190,000 light years in diameter, 180 to 190,000. So it's a biggie, and it has a redshift at that distance of probably around 0.05. Redshift is kind of linear up to about 3 billion light years, and I believe it's 0.8 for the first billion light years in distance, which frankly are most of the galaxies that we can see with amateur telescopes of this type. And so therefore, you could pretty much estimate the redshift is 0.8 per 1 billion light years. First 1 billion light years in distance. NGC 277 is another galaxy in Cetus, but further to the north at minus 8.5 degrees. This galaxy is magnitude 13.4, 1.4 by 1.2 arc minutes, lenticular spiral, 189 million light years distant. It's estimated to be about 75,000 light years in diameter. So there's our look at NGC 277, and I do not see anything creeping across the screen, but I do see the galaxy right about there. We're unlikely to see anything here, but this is NGC 278, a galaxy in Cassiopeia. It's at plus 47.5 degrees. We're probably getting a few stars in the field, but we're not. Oh, maybe the galaxy is there, perhaps. It's a magnitude 10.8, 2.4 by 2.4 face-on spiral with a bar, lowercase b, 39 million light years distant, and we're at plus 47.5 degrees, and we're actually at least seeing a few stars on the screen and possibly a little ghost of the galaxy itself. South once again to NGC 279, a galaxy in Cetus. Magnitude 12.7, 1.6 by 1.2 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase a, 173 million light years distance, probably about 75,000 light years in diameter. We're at minus 2 and change degrees in declination. NGC 280 is a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 13.2, 1.7 by 1.1 arc minutes. Spiral with a bar and a ring. Rings are typically, as I've mentioned before, about 4.5 magnitudes fainter than the galaxy as a whole. Do not expect to see it. This galaxy is 454 million light years distant, which means it's probably somewhere in the region of 250,000 light years in diameter. Very large spiral with a bar and a ring. It's at plus 24 degrees and change declination. I had to skip over a nebula and cluster in Cassiopeia for 281. It was too far north. This is NGC 282, galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 14.5, 0.8 by 0.6 arc minute sized elliptical, 292 million light years distant. This baby is smaller than our own Milky Way, but much more compact with stars. It's at plus 30.5 degrees in declination. Gotta love Go-To. My first couple of years of astro were spent just manually navigating using star charts. Now, having done that, I did learn my way around the sky a little bit. Don't ask me any questions, though. This is NGC 283, galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14.2, 1.6 by 1 arc minute, spiral with a lowercase c. This one is 500 million light years distant, 501 million light years. We're at minus 13 degrees. So given it is also a very large spiral, probably at 200,000 plus light years in diameter. I hope it's somewhere on the screen, and I do think I see it right about there. NGC had a close neighbor, maybe a click or two of the stepper motor. NGC 284, another galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 15, face-on elliptical, 0.8 by 0.8. That's a classic elliptical class O, just a large ball of beautiful stars. 512 million light years distant, which means it's probably gravitationally bound to 283, or vice versa. This is probably more massive. We're at minus 13 degrees in declination once again. 283 and 284 had another neighbor. Could be line of sight. There's no specification here for distance. NGC 285 is another galaxy in Cetus. This one's minus 13 degrees and it hardly moves, so maybe it isn't a neighbor. Magnitude 15.2, 0.7 by 0.4 arc minutes, lenticular spiral. And we're still about 6.5 minutes from the first hour of right ascension. NGC 287 is a galaxy in Pisces. This is about as far north as I've ever seen in Pisces. It's 32.5 degrees in declination. 287 is a magnitude 15.8 by 0.4 oblately presented spiral with lowercase a, 245 million light years distant. We're at plus 32.5 degrees in declination. And I've got 2 bars left on the camera. So I'm hoping I can get through 299 before we run out. Oh, very nice. We had an open cluster this evening, and now we get a globular cluster. You can see right there, NGC 288 is a globular cluster way down south in Sculptor, minus 26.5 degrees. It's a magnitude 8.1, largish, 13.8, and its brightest stars are magnitude 12.6. It's considered a class 10, and you can tell that because it doesn't seem to have much of a brilliant core. Stars are well distributed. It means it's rather loosely constructed globular cluster. It's at minus 26.5 degrees in declination. You gotta like the view, however. It looks very stellar. It's a Christmas cluster. Enjoy. Okay, we're now at 31 degrees minus. NGC 289 is a galaxy in Sculptor. Brightish and large, magnitude 11, 5.4 by 3.8 arc minutes, spiral with a bar and a lowercase bc. It's in our neighborhood, but not in a local group, 72 million light years distant. This should be a nice galaxy to view for folks that are further south. Maybe Arizona should have a look at this one. NGC 291 is a galaxy in Cetus. We're up from Sculptor, magnitude 14.5, 1.1 by 0.6, oblately presented spiral over the lowercase a, 255 million light years distant, means it's probably about 75,000 light years in diameter. We're at minus 8 and almost minus 9 degrees in declination. NGC 293 is a galaxy in Cetus. Magnitude 14.7, 1.1 by 0.9 arc minutes, spiral with a bar and lowercase b as well, 253 million light years distant. We're at minus 7 and change declination. Heading north again, far north, Pisces, NGC 295 galaxy, magnitude 12.6, 2.2 by 1 arc minutes, a spiral with a bar, 244 million light years distant, puts it about the size of Messier 31 at 150,000 light years. We're at plus 31.5 degrees and right ascension 55 minutes. We may be getting a little obstruction from the roof trine. We had a minor little jump of the scope to go to NGC 296. I'm not sure if it shares the field with 295. Galaxy in Pisces, faintest, probably the faintest galaxy we've encountered tonight, magnitude 15.4, 1.2 by 0.4 arc minutes, suboblate super edge on. It's a spiral of lowercase c, 250 million light years distant, a little smaller than the Milky Way. We're at plus 31 and almost 32 degrees in declination. Could also have some obstruction of the lens. Well, I spoke a little early. The next galaxy is magnitude 16.5, small, 0.3 by 0.2 arc minutes. NGC 297 is a galaxy in Cetus, an elliptical 0, which means pretty much roundish, 680 million light years distant. So it's small, probably no more than 50,000 light years in diameter, but it is intense to be seen at that distance. We're at minus 7 and change. I have no guarantees we'll see it on the screen. We're too far south. Let's look for it on tomorrow, but I am seeing a bit of something fuzzy there, about in the location where it should be. but that would surprise me at magnitude 16.5. NGC 298 is 297's neighbor. It's a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.5. Maybe that's what I was pointing at earlier. 1.7 by 0.4 arc-minute spiral to lowercase c. Much closer, 77 million light years. So line of sight, and we're at -7, almost a half degrees in declination, and that's probably NGC 298 right there, magnitude 13.5. Okay, just had to make a run at this one when I saw how bright and large it was. It's way too far south, -37 degrees. You can see some contamination of lights, but there are stars in the fields, and we just saw something else racing across the field of view. This is NGC 300. 299 was not accessible. It's a galaxy in Sculptor. Magnitude 8.1, 19.3 by 13.3 arc-minutes, spiral to lowercase c and a d, 8.7 million light years distant. I suspect this lies within the local group of galaxies of which Milky Way and Messier 31 are a part. We are at -37, almost 38 degrees in declination. I wouldn't have gone here except I saw those numbers. Okay, back to Messier 33. Let's watch it take form on the screen. We've now completed through NGC's 6450 through 7840. However, all of that is posted on my other normal YouTube channel, which is Golden Phoenix Publish. Golden Phoenix Publish, the Astro thread there, has about 150 videos covering everything from the eclipse in 2019 up to the NGC 1 to 49 series earlier about a month ago when I did it. That channel is no longer accessible to me administratively, and I can't say why. I have submitted a request to YouTube to figure out what exactly is going on. However, I love doing the project I'm doing here with the NGC series and this backyard astronomy altogether, and the music that I do, that I'm going to continue to post on Polymath until such time as I restore the channel, or maybe it'll never be restored. I'm also going to point out that due to the moon and travel, etc., I may not be able to continue the NGC series. This year, I'll find an alternative route of imaging, as I mentioned earlier on, deep sky studies of note and interest on an ad hoc basis rather than doing it as a project. So here we have Messier 33 sprawling across the 15 by 20 arc-minute size field of view. I will take the camera inside and I will recharge it, and if the sky holds up, and it didn't last night, but if it does hold up, I'll be out to try to capture 301, because 300's already on this, through 349, and that will probably be it in the NGC series until probably sometime next late fall, at which time I will resume my survey deep sky quest of the NGC New General Catalog, compiled by Dreyer in the 1880s and 90s. So, I may be back later this evening, I may not. Let's leave it up to the night sky to determine. Carpe Noctem.